Well, we anticipated that this was going to be the result. Bo Bassett, the top pound for pound wrestler in the class of 2026, commits to the Iowa Hawkeyes, and Penn State will be just fine.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. My name is Zach Seyko, and I'm your host of the show, this live show to react to Bo Bassett choosing the Iowa Hawkeyes. Not, honestly, my personal expectation was Oklahoma State, but then rumors started circulating that it was going to be Iowa, and that's how it happened here. So this is very reminiscent to Spencer Lee choosing Iowa over Penn State. This isn't insurmountable, but there are some certain things here to address because it's not ideal. It's not ideal because Bo Bassett is in the state of Pennsylvania. He just committed an hour and a half away from Penn State in the Johnstown area, right? That's where Bishop McCourt High School is. But there are obviously the different rumors that are circulating about Iowa and the competitive NIL offer that they had put together. True or not, that Virginia Tech, Penn State, and Oklahoma State all had comparable offers or whatever have you. I mean, it's a big deal. This is the in-state recruit, number one overall recruit, or one of them right in the top three here. And that's a win for Iowa because it does knock Penn State off. However, it's not that Penn State can't get back its footing. We're talking about wrestlers in the class of 2026. In the era of, and Penn State's not typically going to go this way, but the transfer portal and everything else, is that Penn State will be just fine. And I think that's what it is. It is strange. It is odd. Because you would think that somebody in your backyard, one of the top ranked wrestlers, not only in the state, but in the country, and the hype that has surrounded Bo Bassett for the longest time. This is why it's in the spotlight, because of the kind of person that Bo Bassett is. And that's not to demean him or anything. That's not to discredit him, but this has been a very public recruitment. His entire wrestling career has been very public. So to see the people that don't like Penn State wrestling or just want to see a little more parity in the sport are going to like this because it is one of the top recruits out of the state of Pennsylvania in the entirety of the country, choosing Iowa, who is the closest to Penn State. But honestly, I think, I'll tell you who's the bigger threat. It's Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State, because David Taylor, right, was inside the mat room, was inside the wrestling room, knows what needs to be done. And I think to an extent, Iowa still does not get it. Okay, so how much validity we're going to give to that, hey, $5 million, because that's right. Like we can talk about it. This is a talk show. This is a conversation. This is a discussion. And let me know your thoughts in the comment section as well with this live show, right? This is just a reaction to all of this. But we can talk about these things. I'm not going to go on. I can't go on the record and say that I have a report that says X, but the rumor is that there are millions and millions of dollars being thrown around here in this case to recruit Bo Bassett to Iowa. And it goes back. This is the biggest difference between Penn State and Iowa. Iowa is truly trying to buy a national title team. And they're close. They're close. But Penn State's still in their way. And I think to an extent the Hawkeyes do not understand this. Oklahoma State and David Taylor understand it a bit differently. Iowa still does not get it because they went and tore the program apart, pushed guys out that had poured their blood, sweat, and tears and spirit into the program and said, no, we're going to buy one-year recruits out of the transfer portal, right? Just one and dones to try to get second place. Maybe Iowa said that we can be the best team, and if we do this, we'll beat Penn State, and this is the formula, do it this season. Sometimes you got to be realistic and say that, no, that this Penn State, the idea was, especially maybe they probably don't watch this show. Iowa wrestling doesn't watch this show, but we talked about it and how that Penn State was going to be set historical precedents once again. They did it in 2024. They're going to do it again in 25 in this 24-25 season. It's a historic team. And the one-year solutions in the transfer portal, that was not a good idea. Let me bring in Sam Herring, and because he shared his thoughts publicly. So I posted a clip because I thought it was an interesting. You can't ask a coach about a recruit directly, but you can ask about recruiting and not allude to anything, but just what is Penn State's game plan when it comes to recruiting in this modern day and age? When you have the transfer portal, when you have NIL, when you can get aggressive to a point where it's a fault with money. And that's what I'm saying, what Iowa's trying to do here. Penn State still doesn't do that. Even in this competitive, this different level of competition, it's different. I wouldn't say that it's more competitive. It's different because now you can just throw massive amounts of money. It doesn't matter where it comes from until there's some regulation, but it doesn't matter where the money comes from. And you can put it all together in a collective and you can go get a recruit. And Penn State's not doing that. And Cale Sanderson is sticking to the fundamentals of recruiting, whereas there's nothing to sell. It's the results are there. If you want to be here and we want you to be here, okay, it makes sense. So there is no point in trying to force a relationship because at the end of the day, it seems like Bo Bassett would rather be at Iowa with the Hawkeyes, and he said it in his post-match. Congratulations to him. He pinned his opponent in 18 seconds. This will be one of the most memorable nights of his life, and then committed on Flow Wrestling. Okay. Really, it's a chapter in his storybook, right? That he's writing. But Penn State isn't doing anything to change its recruiting approach. And somehow they continue to they continue to set historical records. They are getting in even better, deeper recruiting classes when you have the deck stacked against you and you're not embracing that. Somehow Penn State is able to push the odds despite all of these other things that can factor in where programs can weaponize NIL. You can go into the transfer portal and do this and this and this and this. And you don't have to build a program over years and years and years. You can have these short-term solutions that Cale Sanderson's sits back and says, we're still going to go the traditional route. We're going to help our wrestlers maximize their NIL value, but we're not going to buy them. We're not going to buy their services because I think that creates a bad precedent. We want to talk about historical precedents. I think that creates a bad precedent because then it attracts athletes and competitors for the wrong reason. Because what Cale Sanderson wants are fighters, not winners and losers. What I've learned from him in this season is the fact, and this goes on like a transcendent level, right? This goes on a philosophical level to an extent, that they're doing it for more than just, well, what can I make in NIL? What can I do this? And it's not even about winning national championships. It's about you as an individual getting better. And by proxy, you are going to build the strongest relationships possible. You know that you're going to get trust above all else. And so I mentioned Sam Herring, who is the high school recruit committed to Penn State. He's the 139-pounder on this Bishop McCourt team, one weight class below Bo Bassett. And he mentioned he reposted the video that I shared of Cale Sanderson. And let me see if I have that pulled up so I can directly quote him. But he mentioned trust. And that's coming directly from a recruit, somebody who is actually committed, so he can attest to that. Luke Lillidahl alluded to the same thing, that there's just trust above all else. He knew that this was the place that was going to make him into a better wrestler. Let me point out this about NIL and everything else. The compensation, if you will, doesn't need to come in the form. NIL is great because it allows athletes, recruits, players across the sports to maximize their value. Okay. I have no issue with anybody doing that. But if you are truly as good, great, elite as you say you are, then NIL is meaningless in the scheme of things. If you intend to be one of the best, and this, like I said, across all sports, football, basketball, baseball, what we're talking about here, wrestling, NIL is not going to matter to you because you know that at the end of the day, the hard work is going to build up so much that the success and other forms of compensation come along the way. That might be that might be in sponsorships, right? Okay, it's not necessarily about, but I'm saying that the hard work, the compensation will appropriately follow you if you are truly that good at the sport. So in the scheme of things, that's why Penn State, I think, approaches recruiting the way that it does, and why Cale Sanderson's so transparent, because gosh, I sit back and think he's just giving away his recruiting secrets, that we let the relationships naturally form. We don't try to put pressure on any recruits, and the answers are right there, and he has no problem sharing them because he knows that opposing programs can't live up to them. It's not to say that if they put their mind to it in Oklahoma State, for example, because David Taylor lived it, right? He knows what the building blocks are, but it's easier said than done. And I think that's why Cale Sanderson is fine saying, hey, this is how we recruit. This is what we do. These are our standards, and we're never going to put pressure on a recruit to do X, Y, Z. So it doesn't really change anything. It doesn't change anything in terms of the power structure right now, as Penn State is still the best. They are going to be the best. Oklahoma State is trying to figure it out. But when you have the historical classes of 2024, 2025, because, they missed out on the number one overall recruit in Bassett in 2026, and somehow they came from behind and picked up Marcus Blaze, who could come in and start right away with Bo Bartlett leaving at 141. So that's it. Like I said, nothing really changes here. Got a question up here. Did Iowa just close the gap? We can talk about that more on the other side of this break. And today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Are you looking for tickets for your next big event? Whether it's a concert, comedy show, or a sporting event, finding the right ticket for the right price, it can be a headache, but with Gametime Picks, it's never been easier. Now let me tell you how it works. Gametime Picks on the app, it does all the hard work for you. And on the website too, at gametime.co, it'll curate the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching endlessly through ticket listings. You'll love Gametime Picks. It has curated deals, super simple. It'll help you find great tickets at a great price. No more sifting through thousands and thousands of tickets. Listed right at the top, super deal. So you can get prime seats and you won't believe the value. This is a game changer. The seat view. Before you hit buy, you can see your point of view from that seat, especially when it's handy when you've never been to a specific venue. You can see your point of view ahead of time. It's so reassuring. The best part of all of this, you're covered with Gametime's lowest price guarantee. So if you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund you 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Are you ready to make your next event even better? Download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. That is code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you for joining the live show. The Penn State side of it. I wonder, this is something, Locked On Hawkeyes is probably going to have a great show about this as well. Here's what I say. Let's go find somebody to beat Bo in 2026. That very well might be his own teammate when you think about it. Because something that I was trying to project out, Bo Bassett has earned his right to start for 4 years. 4 years consecutively, no red shirt, if that's the route that he wants to go. And I think at Penn State, it benefits everybody to an extent to red shirt. Do you notice how in this class of 2024, outside of Luke Lillidahl, because Penn State had a need at 125, so right, it made sense. But both the Mirasola twins are red shirting. Zach Ryder is red shirting. Josh Barr is coming off of a red shirt. It is not a routine thing for even the best of the best prospects, because Zach Ryder could go and be I don't want to over exaggerate, but I do confidently believe, because the more you wrestle, the more you do anything. Same thing here with podcasting. The more I do podcasts, the more I talk about each respective sport, whether it's football, basketball, or wrestling here. I would like to think that practice is going to lead me to do better shows. What's the same thing? So when I talk about Zach Ryder and I say he would be a top 10 wrestler this season, Yes, because he would get the starting experience. But look at Josh Barr. Josh Barr, so okay, Zach Ryder would be a top 10 wrestler this season at 184 pounds, right? Carter Starachi's clearly the better option, going for his fifth NCAA title. Josh Barr took a red shirt, and he went from somebody that, okay, probably would have been a top 15 wrestler, bided his time, and is now in contention for a national title. Now, the blueprint doesn't work out that way every single time. I'm saying it does when you go to Penn State, for the most part, right? But that's certainly not the case every time. Carter Starachi didn't redshirt. Luke Lilladall's not going to redshirt. Levi Haynes had an option, and that's to never say never, right? Because wrestlers do have the opportunity to take an Olympic red shirt. Again, everybody's path is unique and different. So for Bo Bassett, if he wants to be a 4-year starter, no questions asked, no red shirt, Penn State's not the place for him. Penn State is going to have options at his alleged, if you will, for the lack of a better, assumed weight classes at 149, 157. Tyler Kasak's still going to be there. Shane Van Ness is going to still be there. Bo Bassett, as talented as he is, I'm taking Shane Van Ness and Tyler Kasak in a wrestle off probably 9 times out of 10. As 4th and 5th year wrestlers at the collegiate level, Bo Bassett, I know what he's doing. I know how he's training. He's going to be probably a top 5 wrestler at whatever weight he chooses. But at 149, 157, right? Where does he project? We're talking about somebody that still isn't even a senior, and he's going to go, and he might be 165 for all we know, but most likely because he wrestles at 145. So, okay, it's a long road back to, let's go find someone to beat Bo in 2026. It might be his teammate, Sam Herring. Sam Herring at 139 is just below Bo Bassett in terms of weight. He's one of the top prospects overall in the class of 2026. That very well might be the rivalry in due time and their teammates presently. Interesting, isn't it? Right? If he prayed about it and felt that's where God wants him, I wish him the best. With that said, Hawkeye fans need to understand they still don't have a full lineup or coach to compete. That's what I mean. Iowa sacrificed completely on the future, all to do what in 2024-25? Come in second? I'd be very concerned about Oklahoma. Then you do all of that work just for Oklahoma State to potentially knock you off for number 2. It sets a nasty precedent. I also look at it this way. So whatever the alleged amount is, you know that Bo Bassett is getting lots of NIL money up front. Does that not... How does the rest of the wrestling room, how do they feel about that? Because we saw what it did the first time around, where we're going to go into the transfer portal and we're going to push you guys out, and guys just said, you know what, I'm not going to. I feel like I've been 2-timed, and that's what happened. You broke that trust. So when you go in and make this investment regardless of dollar amount, you know that Iowa is making a hefty financial investment in securing a commitment one way or another. Just why doesn't wrestler A deserve more NIL, or wrestler B or wrestler C? What is it about specifically for Bo Bassett? Maybe I'm asking too simple of a question. Maybe it's a stupid rhetorical question. But is every single Iowa wrestler going to be okay with that? Do we know that at the end of the day? Penn State has state champions committed in the same weight class at the AAA level. They'll be just fine. Yeah, I don't think Iowa's close. I mean, Iowa still gets top recruits. Here's where Iowa's hurting. Oklahoma State just came into the state of Iowa, David Taylor, and they got Drayshawn Ross, who was the best overall wrestler in the class of 2026. That's your heavyweight. By the time that Ben Keeter is finished at Iowa, perfect time to pass the baton to Drayshawn Ross, but he's going to be at Oklahoma State. Penn State tried to get him to commit. Obviously didn't work out, but shout out to David Taylor and Oklahoma State for landing him. The attention does turn to wrestlers like Jax Forrest, Melvin Miller, right? A lot of guys that are on Bishop McCourt's roster. These guys are all on Bishop McCourt's roster. There's the rumor that they're all going to go, that it's a package deal, that if Bo Bassett goes to Iowa, then Jax Forrest and Melvin Miller automatically, maybe, who knows, right? then that's Iowa. What this does for Iowa, I focus on a lot of the negatives here for the most part, in terms of that Iowa doesn't really learn its lesson per se. But you are getting somebody that is well respected in the wrestling universe, that he is going to be the face of your class of 2026. He is going to be able to recruit in his own right. So Iowa now, by securing this commitment this early, the timing of it, I think, is massive. Because now he gets to work on, hey, Jax, come join me at Iowa. Hey, Melvin, come join me at Iowa. Has a really good relationship with, that's why I thought Rutgers was a serious player in this recruitment, and the way that Bo had framed is, well, I want to be at a program that doesn't have a lot of history, where I can be that new trendsetter for that specific program. So that's why Rutgers actually made some bit of sense here. But didn't even make the top 4. I was surprised that it was Virginia Tech and not Rutgers. Point being that Mason Gibson's on that team. Okay, well, Mason Gibson, if there's an opening for him, what does he think about hitting the transfer portal and joining Bo Bassett in due time in Iowa, right? You get a player, you get a voice for your team. And I think Bo Bassett, again, public figure for his age, but very mature, carries himself very well. You have to be, he's able to combine humility with arrogance at the same time, where it's not this, right? It's not a bad thing, right? It's not an excess to one or the other. So, cause you have to be confident. You can't just be, you can't not be confident and be at the top of your game. You have to have an arrogance to yourself, a bit of swagger, but that's called confidence. So Bo Bassett, like I said, carries himself very well, and hopefully he can kind of change. Maybe he can adjust the mindset of Iowa, but I don't know. He's one wrestler. He's one recruit above all else. So John brings up an excellent point. I haven't even mentioned PJ Duke yet in the class. It depends where everybody lines up. It is so difficult to project these things, but PJ Duke, Marcus Blaze, the Mirasola twins, Josh Barr, Tyler Kasak, Asher Cunningham, of course, son of Coach Casey Cunningham, right? Luke Lillidahl. Bo knew that he would struggle starting on this team, but he will have a solid career at Iowa. Struggling on the Penn State team. I don't know that Bo Bassett wanted to wait his turn at Penn State. I think that's it. I think that Penn State said, we want you. Penn State wouldn't have made his top 4. We want you, but this is your plan. And I think Bo's going to want something different. He's going to want, I don't think he wants to redshirt. Yes, NIL has an impact. And if the rumors are even remotely true that Iowa significantly upped its NIL offer, yes, that is going to make an impact. But it goes back to my point in segment 1. Money should be of no concern, because the compensation is eventually going to follow you if you do it right. It's sacrificing short-term gain for long-term results. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm this beacon of wisdom or anything, but that's really how I see it. Is that this, can't look at what all these wrestlers, aside from Luke Lillidahl, because there's a need at 125. Zach Ryder has no problem with it. The Mirasola twins have no problem with it. Joe Seeley has no issue with it. And then eventually these wrestlers in the class of 2025 are not going to take issue with it as well. PJ Duke, for example, projects in that 157, 65, 74 slot. Where's Mitchell Messenbrink going to be? Where is Tyler Kasak's still there for his 4th year of wrestling at Penn State? Okay. So PJ Duke doesn't just automatically slide into a spot, but he's willing to take that short-term risk to get the long-term development and results. Okay. To each their own. I think that's what we can agree on here, to each their own. But the decision's made. We'll see if anything change, right? This commitment's early. We're talking about a junior in the class of 2026, when this isn't going to have an impact for 2 years from now. That's really what this boils down to. 2 years from now, and this is when the impact of this commitment will be felt. I'll say this much. It doesn't mean that Penn State's going to throw its hands up and say, we're finished recruiting. Oklahoma State, certainly not this. I really thought Bo Bassett and Oklahoma State would make sense. I'll tell you what to keep an eye on. Oklahoma State is probably going to definitely they're just going to be more involved with the recruitment of Jack's Force, because if they don't get somebody like Bo Bassett to be a face of their program, well, why not go after the next best pound for pound wrestler in Jack's Force? What about a Melvin Miller? Oklahoma State is just kind of bringing in everybody, and then when the dust clears, who's going to be the starting 10 at that point? I respect what David Taylor's doing, really, in the present right now. I don't look at, so I have in my show, did Iowa just close the gap? No, they haven't. Oklahoma State quietly is chipping away. It's not happening overnight, but if they keep the course, they will be the closest to Penn State when all's said and done. I wish that I could go through every single comment and just react to and have a conversation individually with you at each and every comment. But we are going to have plenty more conversations about this. Don't get me wrong. We're going to talk to Jeff Byers very soon to get a Michigan preview, but also get his thoughts on Bo Bassett's commitment as well. So that show will be debuting very soon this week. But thank you so much for checking out this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. I appreciate each and every one of you for joining me on this live show and contributing your thoughts in the comment section. And I see having conversations amongst yourselves as well. If you are new to the show, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcast. We do this every day. Penn State wrestling, Penn State football, Penn State basketball. We talk about it all right here on Locked On Nittany Lions. So stay tuned for more conversations about your favorite Penn State sports teams.